Hey Giants fans, welcome back to Giants Latest. Today we are talking about game predictions. So I want to go through some offensive and defensive predictions and then ultimately who I think is going to win game one. But first, the Giants released their unofficial week one depth chart and there's a couple things that we have to discuss. Number one, of course, the most important one is that the backup quarterback is Jackson Dart. That's right. Jackson Dart is quarterback 2, not Jameis Winston. Now, if you look at the way things went throughout the summer, where he was getting reps with all the 2s, he was the number 2 quarterback throughout preseason. It makes sense, right? But I think if you look at the holistic view of the organization, the franchise, this upcoming season and the future, I think it makes more sense to have Jameis as the number 2. Because if something happens to Russell Wilson, why rush Jackson Dart in there, right? It's a different scenario if the Giants are 3-0 and Russ gets injured, right? Even still, I think in that case, you can put in Jameis Winston for the first half and see what happens, and then you can finish out the game with Dart. I just think it's interesting, and I feel like, listen, they know better than I do, and they know from what they've seen in the building with Jackson Dart, but I feel like maybe they're rushing it a little bit. And again, I don't know, maybe I'm being a little overly cautious with this. Time will tell. We'll see what happens. But I just think it's very interesting. I think it's very interesting that he is the number 2, and, we'll see what happens. The only other thing I really wanted to note on here is that for the wide receivers, Jalen Hyatt is the backup to Darius Slayton, Gunnar is the backup to Wandale, and then Bo Collins is the backup to Neighbors. From the offensive line, there's nothing really new here. They have the Marcus Bowe as the backup right tackle, James Hudson as the backup left tackle, and I feel like that's it for the other thing for offense is the running backs. They have Tyrone Tracy number 1 and Singletary number 2, Scat number 3. So I know, I think we all kind of went into the season thinking that Tracy was going to be the number 1, even though, he was getting the most amount of reps and things like that. But, Singletary's the backup. That's probably how it should be. Next up on defense, one thing of note here, I guess, they have Abdul Carter as the backup to Burns. No surprise there. One thing that I thought is interesting, because I had Roy Robertson Harris as being out with the ones next to Dexter Lawrence. They have Nacho as the defensive tackle next to Lawrence as the nose tackle. So that's interesting. Roy Robertson Harris and DJ Davidson are both the backup there. And then the only other thing that I think is interesting or worthy of talking about is that they still have cornerback 2 opposite Paulson Adebo as Cordell Flott / Tay Banks. Now, Dable said during his presser this week that they feel like they've made up their mind and that we will find out on Sunday when the game starts. So we'll see how that goes. But that's it with the depth chart. Let me know what you guys found interesting, what you think about quarterback 2, and let's go ahead and talk about some predictions. So Malik Neighbors historically has done extremely well against the Commanders in the last 2 games. Yes, he had that drop on 4th down that I think we all remember quite well, but if we had a healthy kicker, maybe that wouldn't have even been a question at all, because on 4th and 4 in the Commanders' red zone, they probably just would have kicked a field goal knowing that, they had a kicker. So anyway, I think Malik Neighbors is going to go off. I think there's a lot of questions about the Commanders' defense as a whole. Yes, they added a couple pieces, but Von Miller is older. He's in a different phase. I believe he's coming off an injury. So, I think their defense is probably going to be decent this year, but I also think that it's not going to be a top 10 defense in the NFL. And when you're looking at our defense versus theirs, I think it's not even close. So with that being said, I think Malik Neighbors is going to have a game. I think he's going to have over 100 yards. Call me crazy, but I think that Malik Neighbors is very possible of getting 1,500 yards this season. And I think week 1, where he's probably going to be the most targeted player on this field, where he is the most reliable player on this field for offense, and knowing that it's probably likely that Andrew Thomas is not going to play and James Hudson is going to be in there, they got to get the ball out quick. And who are you going to give it to? Your best target with speed, contested catch capability, can catch anything that comes his way. Athleticism. Malik has everything you want. He's the number 1 for a reason. He's going to get the most targets. In turn, I think he's going to have the most receptions. The most yards, which will lead him to being the most yardage player on this team. I think he's going to have over 100. I also think that Russell Wilson I think we're going to see a lot of dump offs. I think week 1, we're not going to see anything crazy again, especially knowing that Andrew Thomas is going to be not going to be out there. Now, listen, I could be wrong on this and we could see Andrew Thomas. Even still, I don't think that we're going to see anything crazy. I think we're going to see short passes. I think we're going to see a lot of run game. Maybe we're going to see some screen games. I'm sure we're going to see a couple deep passes to Darius Slayton and Malik Neighbors. But I think, Russell Wilson is going to do a good job of being accurate and getting the ball out quickly. And I think that's going to be the thing that's going to help instill some confidence in this offense and help them ultimately win the game, which we'll get to. But anyway, I think the running back situation is going to be a running back by committee. I don't think that either one of them, unless Tyrone Tracy breaks out on a big run and has 40 yards or something like that, I think they're really going to try to just tire out the Commanders' defense, run the ball down their throats, and give Malik Neighbors the ball and put the ball in those players' hands and see what they can do. So I don't think we're going to see anything crazy from the running backs. I think Malik Neighbors is going to show off and have a really good game. And, I think Russell Wilson is going to make smart decisions with the ball. He's going to get it in his players' hands and they're going to make the plays. And I think that's the biggest thing is that I think Russell Wilson will throw for 1 touchdown. I think they will have 1 rushing touchdown. And I think Malik Neighbors but of course, going to be the receiving touchdown. And what I could see them doing is, they did this, I feel like, a bit last year, even though we saw more Singletary. I think that they could get down to the red zone and hand it off to Singletary and have him run it in. So I think there's a possibility that Singletary is going to be the touchdown scorer instead of Tyrone Tracy. We'll see how things go, but I think that'll be interesting. Now, one thing that the Giants defense did well last year, that first game against Jaden Daniels, is they were able to get to him, put pressure on him, and sack him. Now, the thing about Daniels is that he is good under pressure, so we have to be wary of that. And when there's, of course, question marks around the CB2 situation, we need everyone else to pick up some slack. So obviously Adebo is going to be going after Terry McLaurin. Now, I think the good news about McLaurin is that he basically missed the whole summer. So I think they're still going to plan on targeting him a lot. But between him and Zach Ertz, these guys are a little bit older. You're talking about someone in McLaurin who is just getting back to practice and, who we don't really know what we're going to see out of him week 1, but he's going to be used, I think, as a bit of a safety blanket for Jaden Daniels. So ultimately what this defense needs to do is sack Jaden Daniels. They have to put pressure on him, but they have to get him down on the ground because he's good under pressure and he's good at scrambling. And once he takes off, it's hard to tackle him. So I think that we could see 2 sacks in this game. I think one of them is going to be Abdul Carter and I think one is going to be Brian Burns. I think that we're going to see a lot of Dexter Lawrence. I think he's going to be a game changer in this type of game. We need him on the field in order to be able to stop the run and to slow down someone like Jaden Daniels and this new rookie. I don't know his full name, but I know he goes by Bill, so that's what we're going to call him, who was very impressive during that Bengals preseason game. So the Giants have to be able to slow down the run. I think the matchup being Giants versus Commanders week 1. At first, I was like, oh, here we go, division rival. They're coming off an NFC championship game where they won 12 games and blah, blah, blah. And I'm starting to feel like as time has gone on that I think when you look at our team versus their team and you look at the matchups, I think there are a lot of areas where we have better talent and we are a better team in that position than them. Now, the biggest problem with the Giants is that it needs to all come together, and that's where the question marks come, right? Like, we have a top 3 defensive line in the league, but are they going to be able to sack him? Are they going to be able to put him in bad pressure situations? Are they going to be able to stop the run? Is Bobby O going to have a good season this year and have a bounce back year after having a down year last year? Like, these are the things that there's still a lot of question marks about, but if you look at it on paper, it's a good team. So I'm excited. I think the defense is going to keep this team in the game. I ultimately think it's going to be like a 2017, 17-14 type of game. I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. I think because the season is starting where it is, there's a lot of question marks around both of these teams. The Commanders have a hell of a lot of pressure on them after what they did last year. And they had some changes to this team, some for the bad, some for the better. The Giants, I think, got better in a lot of different ways. And I think because they don't have a lot of expectations on them, they could come out. And I think ultimately my prediction is that the Giants are going to win this game. Now, like I said, I think it's going to be really close. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I think the Giants are going to try and tire out their defense by moving the ball down the field and winning the time of possession. I think they're probably going to ultimately end up relying on Graham Gano to potentially kick a game-winning field goal. I think there's a very large possibility that this game comes down to that. I think it could be like the Titans game all over again, week 1 a few years ago. I think because there still are so many question marks around this team, and because we might not see Andrew Thomas, and we don't know if we're going to see Tay Banks or Theo Johnson, like there's still so many question marks about the health of these players too, that I don't look at either of these teams right now as powerhouses. And I most certainly think we're not going to see anything close to that in week 1, where there are so many questions around everything. So I'm very excited. I'm going to be down in DC for the game in all blue, rooting on for my Giants. I cannot wait to see them. And at the end of the day, I just want to see them be competitive. Obviously, I want them to win. That nothing would make me happier than leaving that stadium with the Giants being 1-0, beating a division rival, and starting off the season on a high note. But ultimately, if they can't get that done, I will be happy to see a team that is competitive, that can get after the quarterback, that has a successful run game and pass game, that we see all the moon balls we saw throughout the preseason and got excited about, that we actually see them on game day, that we see an offensive line that knows how to block and open up holes for the running backs and give their quarterback time to make decisions. This is all the stuff that I want to see from this team. And I know it's a lot. But like I said, they made good moves this offseason. I think there's reason to be optimistic about this team. And I think we are catching the Commanders at a very good time, and that this potentially will be the best time to play them before they've had the opportunity to go on a run and get that momentum and, get players back from injury and things like that. So I think it could work in the Giants' favor. I hope that they do it. Let's go Big Blue. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and come back tomorrow, because we are talking about injuries and we're going to have a much better idea of what the team is going to look like on Sunday, so stay tuned.